Hey y'all, it's Kelly from Dixie Darlins Tumblers here, and today I've got something new to show y'all. So Sarah from Vamp Custom Creations just released today these new vinyl sheets, and she's doing patterns either on a transparent background or a white background, and then she's also, instead of just doing her single sticker cows, she's doing her sticker cows as a sheet. So I was fortunate enough to get my hands on these before she released them. She was kind enough to send me some. So I wanted to try the transparent vinyl sheets to see what they were all about. So I'm actually going to glitter a cup, and then I'm going to lay a transparent leopard rainbow print over it. And then since Lauren Quigley started this acrylic marker trend, and then Jessica Flynn got on, I was like, you know what, I got to try this out, but I got to do it with a Kelly twist. So I'm not going to do your typical tie-dye. I'm just going to throw in a little bit, but it was so much fun. I love working with these markers. And then these transparent vinyl sheets, I liked them so much more than I expected I would. So you guys make sure to check them out. I will link them in the description box below. She does have them live on the website, and then she also is going to have new patterns coming out, and I've seen them, and you're going to love them. So I'm excited about those. So I'll list everything. Make sure you check out the links because I will include some discount codes for y'all. So please subscribe so you don't miss my future tutorials. I hope that y'all enjoy it. Ask any questions as always, and thank y'all for watching. Well, we're going to start out with a big mess up from Kelly because I actually thought that I videoed sanding the true 22, but I guess I just did the 24 plump. But I did want to go over sanding. I just take a sanding block, and I get these from Amazon. They're in a pack of 4. They come in 60, 80, 120, and 220. And I usually use the 60 grit to just sand the surface of the cup. So I kind of go up and down, and then I go in a circular motion, and I make sure I get the bottom really good, especially if you're going to do a vinyl wrap on it. I always make sure that I'm going to sand the bottom and then the top rim really well also. And then I'm just going to take a paper towel, and I'm going to get some rubbing alcohol on it, and then I'm going to wipe the cup down. So you'll see how much comes off on the paper towel here. It's really a lot nastier than I think it is. Every time I wipe it down, I was like, oh, it doesn't seem like there's that much on there. But so after I get that wiped down, I'm going to go in and spray paint it once it dries, and I just give it like 5 or 10 minutes. And now I've actually transitioned to the cup that I'm using for this design from the Steel Magnolia, the True 22. Sorry for the mess up there on the sanding thing. But I did spray paint this cup with Rustoleum's 2X matte white, and I've let that dry for about 30 minutes. And now I'm going in with a very thin layer of Counterculture's Artist Resin. I just want a very thin layer to apply my glitter. And then once I make sure I've got that epoxy coat smoothed out really well, I'm going to go in with my glitter. And I'm using Peachy Olive Glitter's Bifrost. This is just a gorgeous white, and I knew that I wanted to pull some of the pinks and the purples from the Leopard that I'm going to put on it. So I kind of wanted that tint in the background. So this is just a beautiful Peachy Olive Glitter. I had several of them sitting there. You can see I was like, there's so many pretty whites here. Which one do I choose? And then just because of the pink and purple tint to this one, I thought this is going to be the perfect fit for this cup. And then I'm just going to take a piece of parchment paper, and I'm just going to wrap it around the cup. Even though this isn't necessarily a chunky glitter, I want a thin layer as I can get here because I'm going to lay the vinyl over it. So I'm just going to press that down all the way around the cup, and then I just take my thumb and work my way around the top to wipe off any that just kind of seems to be sticking out, and then press around the bottom the same way. And then after I've got this pressed down fairly well, where I feel like there's not going to be any bumpy places, I am going to let that dry for about 6 to 8 hours, and then I'm going to go in with a layer of Quick Coat from Counterculture. So you guys, if you've watched me, you know I love this stuff. I put it on chunky glitter, I put it on vinyl, and I just apply a little bit and just rub it over the cup just because it seems to seal this, and my next layer of epoxy seems to go over really smooth. So especially on a cup like this where I'm going to lay vinyl, I wanted to make sure that I could get as smooth as possible. So then I'm going to go in with a layer of Counterculture's Artist Resin again here, and I let the Quick Coat dry for about 30 minutes. And then I'm going to go in with about 30 milliliters of Counterculture's Artist Resin, and I'm going to apply that to the cup, and then I'm going to let this coat dry for about 6 to 8 hours. And I am going to use my torch to pop any bubbles. I use the Bernzomatic TS 4000, and I just do a quick up and down over there to pop any bubbles. And then I'm going to let that coat dry for about 6 to 8 hours, and I'm going to go into sanding. So I do sand the rim here, and I did want to show this because I always get asked a lot of questions about sanding the rim, whether it be vinyl or with glitter. So I'm just going to usually take a 120 sanding block, and you just kind of figure out what your rhythm is to where it's smooth. So if I lay my cup down and usually work my way around the cup, it seems that it gives me a pretty even edge around the top. So especially if it's white, I try to be really careful. And then I'm just going to go over the rest of the cup here and just sand down any places, because I am going to do one more coat before I lay my vinyl on. So I just want all those little bumpy places gone. So especially on the bottom, I'm going to be fairly careful, but I do want to sand it pretty aggressively here to get rid of any of the bumps there. And then after I'm fairly happy with my sanding job, I'm going to go back in with one more layer of Counterculture's Artist Resin here. I only do about 20 milliliters. I just want a really thin coat just to kind of smooth out anything right before I put this vinyl on. Even though it's transparent, I still wanted it as smooth as possible, because once it's on there, there's not going to be any sanding then. So I just wanted to make sure that it was pretty smooth like I was going to want it in the end right before I put the vinyl on it. So I am going to apply this coat, and then I'm going to let it dry for about 6 to 8 hours before I'm going to move in to put my transparent leopard spots on there. So after I've let that dry for about 6 to 8 hours, now I'm ready to move into this transparent rainbow leopard print. So I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to do this. Definitely, if you're going to wrap it on a cup that is not tapered, you could just wrap it just right around the cup like you would any cup, you know, any normal vinyl. But this, just because this has a taper to it on this True 22, I decided that I was going to lay it down in pieces and kind of do the main part of it to start with, so I'd make sure it was lined up pretty level with the cup, pretty square with the cup, and then I would go back in and fill in where my seam would be just manually. You'll know how I am about, like, I like to lay my leopard spots by hand, so this was like really letting go of control that I was going to lay them down in just a sheet like this. So, but I just do end up laying down the center section just so it would be square on the cup, and then fill in my seam by hand. And then once I figured out that is where I need it on the cup, I'm going to go in and just trim off that top section, just because there was excess, and I thought, well, maybe I'll use these for something else. I didn't want to just waste the top part of this, because it definitely was tall enough that I was going to have enough spare, that you never know when those extra leopard spots might come in handy. And then I am decide here that I'm going to lay it the bottom of the vinyl level with the bottom of the cup. So I wasn't going to try to wrap this vinyl around. So once I decided that it was square on the cup and I had it about where it would need to lay, I'm just going to trim off, like I do any vinyl wrap, the little edge of the backing here, so I can go ahead and lay just one little piece on there before I get all this vinyl on the cup and make a big mess out of it. And then here I'm just trying to get a feel for exactly where I need the placement on the cup, just because on a curved cup and you're trying to lay a fine line across the bottom so it matches up well, sometimes it just takes you a couple of tries. Even though I was leaving that center piece out where I was going to seam it together, still I just wanted to make sure that the bottom of the vinyl was going to line up with the bottom of the cup as well as possible. And then once I've got it lined up square, I'm just going to go ahead and press that edge where I've pulled the backing off. And then I'm just going to do it like I do any vinyl wrap. I'm going to take the backing and I'm just going to peel just that little edge. And then I'm just going to allow the pressure of me pressing the vinyl on the cup to remove the backing at the same time. And then I'm just going to work my way around the cup like I do vinyl. I'm just going to press it down. I tried to pay careful attention at the top and the bottom, because those are the areas that tend to want to bubble and crease and not lay flat. So you can see there, I kind of just try to make sure that I'm really paying attention to the top and the bottom. More so the bottom, just because I'm not going to trim any of that off, but the top too. And because there's no real seam here, you guys aren't gonna get me laying my tape down like I usually do. And this is listed on the BAMP Custom Creations website as the Neon Rainbow Vinyl. I will have that linked in the description box below, and I also have a discount code for y'all. So there's so many cool patterns that she has on there, and these sticker cow sheets are great too. So y'all make sure you check them out. She's got some great patterns that are gonna be coming out this month too. I've seen them, and they, like, I love these, but the ones that she's coming with are even more exciting. And then once I've got all my little areas pressed down on the cup, I'm just going to go back and, just like I do with the normal vinyl, I'm just going to pull it tight around the top, and then I'm going to take my craft knife and then I'll just trim off the excess just like you would with your vinyl. And I just leave where there's a raw edge there. I'm just going to leave that at the top of the cup. And then I'm just going to take my sharp craft knife here and just trim it right off, right around the edge. I am going to go back and sand here, so after I've got a layer of epoxy on, so I'm not going to worry too much about it, but I'm just going to try to get it as straight as possible here, and then press down any creases, because again, here you will have the areas that want to crease over that glitter that's already laying on the cup. And then you can really see here while I'm just working around the cup, trimming off this excess, how cool this is, that these really are transparent. So there's no seam on them. Like when you lay them on there, you cannot see that it is a sticker on there in between the spots. So I think they're really cool. I was surprised. I thought they would have more of a heavier feel, but they're really thin. They're much thinner than I thought, but they hold up really well. So I was really excited about these. And then I'm just going to go back and I'm just going to trim off any areas, because that is going to be the bottom edge. So if there were places that wanted to crease, I'm just taking my craft knife and kind of running it as a slit so it'll lay down. And then I'm just going to trim off any areas that seemed like they want to stick up. You know, if it's the bottom of the cup anyway, I wasn't going to be too worried about it being wrapped around the total bottom of the cup. So I just thought that it would be better just to trim off any areas that look like they were going to create any issues once I put epoxy on there. And now I'm going to go in with my two colors that would have met at the seam and try to make them transition from one side to the other as seamless as possible. And I just decided to go ahead and trim them down to whatever size I thought I would need. So I was going to lay the bulk of them on there all at one time. And then I thought, you know what? I like to lay things one at a time anyway, so why change that now? So these were very easy to cut apart. I tried to trim off any excess, you know, just so I'd cut as close to the actual leopard spot as I could here, so you wouldn't have more of the transparent part overlapping with each other. But you definitely could just lay the whole, you know, seam there. I just, you know, if you guys have watched me, you know, I just prefer to lay them by hand. I like to do things the hard way sometimes, and it just seemed to flow better that way. But yeah, so I just end up trimming them off and kind of laying them one or two at a time. Then after I've got all of the vinyl laid on the cup, I am going to go into a coat of Counterculture's Fast Set. So I do end up using about 20 to 25 milliliters here of Counterculture's Fast Set, and I'm going to apply that to the cup, use my torch to pop any bubbles, and then I will let this coat dry for about 3 hours before I'm going to go into painting my tie-dye with the acrylic markers. And now I'm going to go into my little surprise here, my little heart tie-dye. So I don't know what made me kind of want to go in this direction. I thought I just want to add a heart tie-dye versus just doing a regular tie-dye, because I knew I kind of wanted to do a burst on one side and not cover up all the vinyl, but just have a little fun in there. So I'm just going to freehand my heart, and there's no real way here, you know, like definitely if you want to learn like the professional tie-dyes, go watch Lauren Quigley, who makes beautiful tie-dyes with these acrylic markers, and Jessica Flynn did a beautiful one. Lots of people have done beautiful ones that are the regular tie-dyes, and I don't really know how to explain. I just try to make it as random as possible, but still I wanted to still keep the heart, you know, the shape of the heart, but I wanted it to kind of be spread out still. So I just kind of went with it. And actually the good thing about using these acrylic markers over a layer of epoxy is that you can wipe it off. So I actually liked that versus if you're just using it on a spray painted cup, there's really not a lot of getting that off because I've tried it before. But over the layer of epoxy, you really, so it doesn't, the coverage isn't as well because you are just going over, you know, your epoxy, and I was going over the leopard spots that are there. So it took me a little extra paint probably, but I like the fact that you can just wipe it off if you mess up. So there's not really a lot of talking I want to do here. I'll just let y'all kind of watch me work my way around the cup. I am using the fluorescent pink, the fluorescent yellow. It is the bright green, the Arctic blue, and the orchid purple. And those are the acrylic Arteza markers, and I will list them in the description box below for y'all. And some of the areas that I just didn't feel like had good enough coverage over the leopard spots, I do go back in and just add a little bit more paint to a couple of those little spots where I felt like the leopard spots were just showing through. But it really wasn't that big of a deal. It didn't take too much effort there. They were covered up pretty easily. And now I'm just going to go in with my fluorescent yellow, and I'm just going to kind of make random strokes here where I'm going to start spreading it out a little bit more and making it a little more spread out than I did with my pink, because I wanted with the pink to really keep the shape of the heart, but now I'm going to kind of start spreading it out a little bit. And then I do go in with the Arctic blue here. If I had to do it over again, I probably would just go straight in with the green next to just do a small border, because I am going to do the blue. Then I go back in with the green, and then I felt like it took too much of the blue away. So I do go back in with the blue just to kind of do some touch-ups afterwards. So if I had to do it over again, I probably would just go to the green next and then to the blue. And you can see I'm just doing a thin, you know, kind of a blending with the green. And then I do go back in just to add a little bit more blue. I felt like I wanted a little bit more blue. The green had taken away from it just a little bit too much for me. So I just go back in, and I don't do a full border around it, but I just do a little strokes here and there just to kind of touch up. And then I go in with this orchid purple, and y'all, it is so pretty. I almost did lilac, and then I just kept going back to this orchid purple. It was just so striking. So once I got it on there, I was like, oh yeah, I'm so glad that I used this one, because it was the perfect border accent. You know, I was going to stretch it out the farthest here and then lay glitter over it, so I knew it was just the perfect color. So y'all need to get some of these markers, because I really like these. This is kind of my first time playing around with these too much, but I've really had a lot of fun with them. It's made me start thinking of all the things that you can do with these markers. So it only took the paint about 10 minutes to dry, and then I go into a layer of Counterculture's Artist Resin. So I do use about 20 milliliters here. I want a pretty thin coat because I'm going to apply some chunky glitter here. So I don't want too much movement in it, but I want it enough to be on there for the glitter to lay flat. So I'm going to apply my epoxy, and then I'm going to use Peachy Olive Glitter's Quinn. This is like such a pretty chunky opaly mix that I knew that it would still allow my tie-dye heart to show underneath, but it would give it just the perfect little bling to kind of blend it all together. So I am just going to apply that, and I just kind of start moving it back and forth because I wasn't sure how much I wanted to add here. I was just going to try to blend it out, and then once I started adding it, I was like, oh my goodness, this stuff is so pretty. I just couldn't stop. I just had to keep adding it. So I do end up doing a pretty good coat here to blend it out in with the others, and so you can still see the heart, and the tie-dye, but it just gives it that perfect, you know, it just made the perfect tie-dye to me. And obviously when I say perfect tie-dye, it is all in the eye of the beholder. So this was just what I felt like made it blend the best and kind of give it the effect that I had in my mind I was going for. And once I got the glitter, the amount that I wanted on there, I didn't like the chunkier parts over the leopard spots. So I do just kind of go back in there, and there was only a few little pieces. I did want it to blend, but I just, for whatever reason, it was kind of bothering me to have those big chunky pieces strewn out over the leopard spots. So I did go back and kind of take those off. And then I've let that coat dry for about 6 to 8 hours, and I did sand this down with my 120 sanding block. And then this is just a decal that I purchased on Etsy. I'll link it in the description box. I knew that I wanted a Be Kind, and I kind of played around with a few different ones, and this is the one that I came up with. I didn't want it to distract from the tie-dye heart, but I definitely wanted there needed to be something in the center. So I kind of thought I wanted a Be Kind, and then I found this one and I was like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna go with this. And I did it in the white opal vinyl from the Vinyl Cottage. I love those opals, and this is the white opal. And then I'm gonna go into a layer of Counterculture's Artist Resin. This is my final layer, and I'm gonna use about 30 milliliters here on this True 22. So I'm gonna apply this to the cup. I'm gonna use my torch to pop any bubbles, and then y'all are gonna have my final design. And then after I let that dry for about 8 hours, here's your final design. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you liked the design. Please join my Facebook group, Dixie Darlins Tumblers, and share your creations. Tag me in your creations on Instagram or TikTok or wherever you post them so I can see what you guys create. I love seeing your designs. And please like, share, subscribe, all that fun, crazy stuff. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Ask any questions, and I'll see y'all again soon.